Hey, it's Greg, and you're listening to Local Vibes.
Thank you so much for joining us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear about what you played today. There's about three songs and kind of an interesting transition between one and the other, right? So let's hear more about that.
hmm First song is called "His in the Clouds," and I sort of wrote it a couple years ago, about 3 years ago, because I said that I was 21. I'm 24 now, but at the time I was 21, and I was working at Amazon, and at the time it sort of felt like I was a disappointment to my mom. Um, just sort of things didn't pan out the way they did, and my mother, she's very high in on academics and got her PhD and everything. So I kind of wanted to fulfill that, and so that's why I sort of like, that was sort of like an ode to my mother. That even though I didn't go the route that she wanted me to go, that I would figure things out, and she knows, like, she's very supportive of uh, my music journey and any other endeavor that I take on in life. So, and then it transitions into the Feed the World song, Feed the World from Hunger. And I just recently released that song. And that's when I was going over different concepts before I sit down and sort of like create my songs. I like to bring up a certain concept that I can grab. And this one was when I was younger. And it sort of like built off a moment when I remember I was hungry, and like I said, the only meal that I had and a lot of other kids had in my neighborhood in Chicago was free lunch. And so my brother was also hungry, so I went to the corner store and I stole some chips, some juice, put it in my backpack like any kid would do. And then the cops, they was on that with me. So it's interesting the way that the world works, and it sort of can squeeze you out of resources. I don't know, but that's pretty much what that transition. So I'm trying to make my mom proud, and then a deeper dive into um, me and my mother's and my brother's story, how we came up.
Yeah.
hmm
And what about that third song you performed? How can you talk more about that one?
Yeah, the third song, "Put It in a Poem, Not a Song," was sort of like I wanted to have like a little bit of a fun song, because I feel like my songs are very introspective, and I wanted something different, but also like a vibe like, okay, you can dance to this. Um, yeah, I used to put a lot of my thoughts and words into poems. That's where my background comes from. My mom is a published poet and has books and stuff. So I sort of like grasped off that, and I saw my mom, doing a lot of poetry, dope stuff, and I started off doing the same thing, performing at poetry events, and got my start that way. So, putting in a poem, not a song, is sort of just like, okay, that's what I used to do, and now I'm making songs, and let me sort of like make it a little bit fun, but also dive into, the more introspective lyrics. But that's why the hook is like, boom boom, Um, but after that, I definitely dive deeper into sort of what I like to go into, and sort of it's off another project called Children of the Hood that I just released, and it's sort of like a concept of what those kids, just like me, were going through economically, socially, and any type of way. Like I said, it sort of just feels like you're getting squeezed out of resources, and we have a political climate right now that is interesting because it never mattered to us. It never mattered to kids like me. It never mattered to my mother, who was in power and government, because it just never changed. We were still broke. We still couldn't afford anything, and my education was still one of the worst. So it's sort of like I wanted to highlight some of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
So, your mother being a prominent writer and author, you have this background. And what made music so appealing to you? What made you want to explore this medium, music?
I wanted to explore it First off, um, my mom didn't allow me to do sports, and so I had to find ways to sort of get have my hands busy at the time. And I think around 8 years old, uh, that's when I picked up violin. And I didn't have violin at my school, but I was like, I was coming to my mom because she wouldn't buy me anything unless it was like something to do, like something to build off of creatively. So I really begged for the violin. She saved up enough money to get the violin, and then I got it, and then I just started playing by myself. That's sort of like my music journey, and I never read the music. I just listened to the music, and then I would play it on my violin, and I was getting kind of good, kind of decent, and so I auditioned for violin school, and I got into it at the time, and so I did that for a couple years before I even started poetry or rapping. And I played trombone a little bit, and that was sort of like my introduction. So I listened to a lot of instrumental classical jazz music at the time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you even mentioned writers such as Maya Angelou in your writing. So were there any other prominent writers that you kind of particularly took influence of?
I'm a huge fan of James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni. I think those two are pretty good. I would just name those two. James Baldwin being one of my favorite poets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of circling back to that jazzy background, what else kind of drew you to this style? Are there any other artists or albums that played a key role in shaping this sound?
Um, I guess like it all comes down to like one day where my uncle was driving me around in this hoopty, and it was just me and him, and he put in this CD. Used to burn the CDs, and then he put in this CD, and then I was hearing like this, like these dope jazzy instrumentals, and then like classical elements, and but like then it was like this amazing rapper on top of the lyricist, like talking about things that upheld a lot of value to me at the time. I felt like I related to that artist at the time. I felt like that was me, and that sort of like spoke to me. And that artist was J. Cole, um, and then also he put in another tape at the time, and it was Kendrick, and they both sort of like were out, at the same time simultaneously, which was kind of dope for me to experience and grab those mixtapes. And so I literally begged him for that CD, and he gave it to me. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And your mom, not letting you join sports, and kind of getting you into doing more of music. Were there any other people in addition to your uncle that kind of pushed you to create?
Um, I would say I don't think so. I think that my mom had a creative side that was sort of developed herself naturally, and she was the one really pushing that for me. Uh, it's not really wasn't really particularly like a thing with my family. Like we were sort of like, you just do this type of job, you work that type of job, and you try to figure it out. Um, it was no creativity side, but there were creative moments that I did learn about. Sort of like my family, like my grandpa was a DJ, one of like the pioneers of like house music and stuff like that. So that was cool to hear. But so maybe I get some of my ears from that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I kind of bouncing off the house music. You're from the South Side Chicago,
Hmm.
and now being part of the Minneapolis music scene. How have both cities shaped your perspectives as an artist?
Uh, Chicago sort of Chicago always has given me a backbone, uh, and made me prepared for the real world. Uh, Even like me starting music in a city like that with all of these legends, Kanye West, Common, uh, so many people. Oh my God. Like Chicago's crazy. Like MCs. And so like the local MCs were just, they were fire. And I just came with like it's a competitive spirit. It's not I want to be your friend. I want to be cool with you. Like you walk in the show, like you do your set, and like I like people mean mugging me during my set. Like if you nice, they finna mean mug you. Like they like, who you think you is? Like so you gotta like prove yourself. But then after they'll come up, you dope, you cool, you know. And the Minneapolis scene, I learned more. I learned how to dive into myself as a real artist, and really take things to a different level with my music. So Chicago gave me the backbone. Minneapolis gave me the growth, the tools to grow
Yeah.
in a sense. And yeah, I've also grown with the band. We got Frequency, Wayne, Jimmy, and Gavin. Like they've been helping me grow astronomically. I'm just playing with them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Through all that hard work, you've been able to gain recognition. You've been featured on multiple Spotify playlists that highlight independent rappers. So, have you noticed any tangible impact on your career from this exposure? And how has it changed how you approach social media, and your presence on platforms such as Instagram or YouTube?
Um, to be honest, it's like I just create what's authentic to me, and whatever came just came. I sort of just want to keep doing stuff the way I want to do it, and whatever happens will happen, and that sort of just worked for me. I don't want to sort of like make something happen. I think it. I should make sure I have the tools and talents equipped and be ready for something to come to me. So I don't know. It's like as far as like tangible things, like you can get streams, you can get plays, um, and there has been like some A&Rs reach out, but that hasn't manifested into anything yet. But
Yeah.
maybe near future.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet. You've mentioned that you don't want to be confined, by these boundaries. You don't want to be put in a box in any sort of way. So what's one risk that you've taken recently? I know you dropped an album in January.
Hmm.
So what was one thing that you kind of experimented on in that project?
On that project, well, first I gotta say shouts out to Hayden and Gibby. Those are the engineers who helped me with that project. Really great engineers, like all the way through. They sort of like I get in the studio with them. We get ideas. I'll bring some beats. They'll maybe make some beats. And as far as this project, I think I pushed myself to sort of sit in more of an experimental sound compared to in the past. I was like, okay, just rap, just set up the bars and the verse and this and that. Where with this, I was like, okay, let me get a little comfortable, a little bit more melodic, a little bit more space for the tracks to breathe and sit with the audience. So, and also I was really, now that I was working with the band, I was really thinking about the live element. So a lot, all of those instrumentals were made live with real instruments, not from like a beat pad or anything like that. So it's kind of nice that they can come in and sort of like play off that. It's a little bit easier, sound a little bit better, sound just like the track. Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, what is up next? Do you have any shows or upcoming singles coming out in the future?
I don't have anything right now at the moment, but I got some inquiries, so it should be something on the lookout soon. Yeah. So
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us,
thank you.
and we'll see you later.
Thank you.